So this month I was going to do surface pattern design, book jacket design, one cookbook recipe design, because if you all want to make another cookbook for later this year, then we can do one session on that, which will again be like layout design. And there was the last one was, oh, shut it now. Poster design. So now, Susan suggested yesterday that she'd like to know more about print or print making. So today and the next week, we could combine the two together and do a little bit of print design also. So there's two aspects to it. One is how to make the surface pattern, and the second one is how to make a production or a pattern that you can then produce on a larger scale. So for that, we will need some tracing paper or some butter paper to be able to do that. And it's a slow process. So I will explain what that entails today, but we'll execute it next week. Hi, Madhuja. So we'll need some paper and paint today. We will be doing some direct painting and a little bit of drawing as well. All right. So surface pattern or surface design is nothing but something like what I'm wearing. It's a print. It's any kind of surface treatment. When it comes to fabric, we can make print, or even we can make embroidery or like cut work. So anything that treats the surface of any other object becomes surface design. So depending upon what surface, if you have a wall or if you have wood, you can do all sorts of textures and patterns on that. So today's session, I want you to try and expand your imagination to see how many places you can call surfaces. Anything that you can touch can be a surface. And all of that can be decorated. And the decoration does not always have to be in 2D. It can be 2D, 3D, and in 3D, it can also be interactive. So there's lots of things that you can do. A lot of imagination can be employed over here. What we are going to do is at least just start with the 2D decoration to be able to see patterns in things that otherwise you would not have seen. And try to just create patterns with all sorts of elements that are easy for us to draw. So with any kind of print or pattern, you always start with defining or designing a certain motif. You can have any number of motifs, and I'll be sharing a few pictures that I've found online to explain how those motifs work. But I didn't want to put that picture in front of you before you imagine it. So we will build some patterns, and you will be able to see how those patterns are created and what kind of logic is used for it. And then I'll show you those other patterns, and then you can see how they match, how they make sense. So what we'll do is on our sheet, we will just make a few small boxes, so maybe about 6 boxes on an A4 sheet. So they'll be about 3 inch by 3 inch or 3 inch by 4 inch. And in each of them, we will do some kind of small illustration with some set of motifs. So motif is nothing but one element of a design. If you, oh, sorry. So let's just make 6 boxes like these. And we are just going to decorate these boxes. So we have an extremely rich tradition of patterns and fabrics and printing and print design that goes back millennia. So we are really, really spoiled for colors and patterns. Even kinds of designs from region to region. But I want you to try and stay away from our traditional patterns and just think in terms of very rustic patterns. Now, the application of this could be all over the place. It could be just a plain card that you're sending to someone, but you could change even that. So, what do you normally have handy? You probably have a pencil or a pen. So if we start with just a pen, or in fact, let's just start with paint. Let's not even bother with pen and pencil. Let me just get mine. So one of the easiest way to make any kind of surface design is to take one element and distribute it over a surface. So in this case, let's take the element of a circle or a dot. And we have to decorate this box. The normal tendency for most people is to start from the top left or the top and work downward. But if you have a defined surface that you have to decorate, a better way is to start from the center, because that is the focus of any illustration. So every illustration you should start visualizing and planning from the center outward. You may or may not have elements in the center, but the planning must begin with the center in mind. So let's start with a simple circle in the center. Now, if you have to distribute similar circles all over the place, let's put one in this negative space between the circle and the edge. So we start creating some rules for repeating. And in this case, what we are doing is we are repeating these circles in a single line next to each other. And with this amount of distance between them. Now with this rule, we would also have some part of the circle visible on this side. Now this is something that a lot of times people forget, that it's really important to distribute negative space equally. So if we don't draw this circle, it looks as if your design is only in the center and not part of a large pattern. If you're making a print, it should look like this part has been cut out from a larger pattern. Now, beyond this, we can do all sorts of things. So we have to think of this as in these terms. What is our element? How we are repeating. These are the rules that we have in place. So in this particular case now, suppose we just repeat on top and bottom exactly the same way, so that you have a circle above every other circle. And this just continues. And pay attention only to the negative space in between. Very often it happens that Even if your circles don't look identical, if the negative space looks the same or balanced, your pattern will continue to look nice. Okay, so this is one repeat. In the same box now, we can change the pattern and we can do what is called a half drop. So a half drop is when you shift the design by half. And I'll explain this in a bit. So I'm now making a circle between the previous circle. So this is a separate kind of repeat. This is how you will see polka dots. The repeat of polka dot patterns is always a half drop repeat. So instantly you've added a quirk to the design, making it a little more interesting than just a regular repeat. Okay, so you have element circle repeated with so much distance. And because it's a circle, from whichever angle you see it, it will look the same. Now, another element can be just stripes. This is the easiest thing that you can do. Just make vertical or horizontal stripes. So you take again one element, and in this case, again, you can start from the center. So here I wanted to just show you one technique of making these regular size stripes is if you look at the brush often, even if it is tapering, it has an edge that you can press and create one thickness of line. So if you hold it upright, you'll make a very thin line. But if you hold it a little flat and press down, you can get a very nice line with solid edges and a consistent thickness all the way. This is a wonderful way to make a brick texture. Now, because the brush is moving a little counter to the grain of the paper, the color will reduce as you go further. But if you go slowly, it'll give the paint enough time to sit and interact with the paper. So don't try to do it too fast. Now, all I'm doing is dividing the space between the lines. And you have a nice regular repeat where the rules are similar. You have one element and the repeat is just one below the other at a particular distance. Now, to this, now we can add a second element. And the second element or the second factor can also be color. So here we've got blue colored stripes, one blue colored stripe. What if we make another set of stripes running in between these lines in red? So the element is the same, but one is a thick line and the second is a thin line in a different color. So what I'm trying to do is breaking down the process of surface design for you. With each new addition you make, the design changes completely. While the bottom part of this design will look very Mediterranean, when you add the red stripe, it completely changes and might even be reminiscent of, say, the American or the British flag, or in the French flag, because they have similar colors. So it starts adding some kind of connotation to the design that you're making.
Once you add this red line, it looks like that in North America, all babies are wrapped in this cloth when they are born.
Oh, is it?
North America has a standard wrapping cloth, all hospitals.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Oh my God, you're so right. That's exactly what it looks like.
It looks just like it.
I remember Ashika had broken her leg, 1.5 years old, but this is exactly the wrap they gave her.
My goodness.
Small kids, same color. Yes, you're right.
Okay, so now this is again a regular repeat. And to this, now if we turn the direction, so here comes another factor. You have direction, and direction could be anything. It could be direction of line, and later on it will also be direction of motif. So here we can say, and in most of these cases, when you are developing a design, it has to be, why not? Let me just try and see. So we can repeat the same element, but we are changing the direction. Or you can repeat the same element, but change the color and change the direction. You can also change the repeating pattern. So if you want, you can leave more space between these. But the identity of the element remains the same for this. So here again, let's start from the center. Now, for those of you who are unsure about where the center is, use your finger or use a pencil and place it in the center of your design and actually measure, because this estimation of space often can be a difficult exercise right in the beginning. So I even now use my finger to just give myself a spot, and from there, then I will make my line. And often I may be a few millimeters off, but that's okay. But this distribution and division works really well because you always get a very regular pattern when you start from the center instead of from the side. And it's such a simple logic. I don't know why it took me years to figure this out. Now, the only thing that happens over here is this distance and this distance could be a little off. So my design is going to be more rectangular than squares, but they will be regular. Now, when you're making this pattern, make sure that you don't have too much color or too much water in your brush, because when the second color comes in contact with the first stripe, if there is too much water, it might create blobs. So slightly dry paint is a better way to go. That way, when you cross over, all you get is a nice glaze of a double color. I'm going to do this as well because I can see that the pattern is otherwise going to look incomplete. Just the edge. Now maybe I can change, the color to orange for the stripe in between. And again, I'm just going to paint half. So now we have 3 colors, 2 different types of elements in 2 directions. And in this one block, we have 4 patterns. We have this one, the original, which is just the blue stripes. Then we have this, the second one, which is blue and red, horizontal stripes. Oh, it's gone now. No, it's there, right? No, it's got vertical also. So I should have just done so much. So 2 would be half. This is the third, and this is the fourth. So if I'd not made these vertical lines over here, I would have got only horizontal lines. But there are still 2 variations over here. One is with the red horizontal stripe, one is with the orange vertical stripe, and here all of them come together. Okay. So technically, we've missed out on 1 and 2. 1 and 2 were just the horizontal stripes. So this would be 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Now, if we want to make it a little more complicated, we can design different kinds of elements. And in this case now, we can design an element which is not as simple or directionless or I guess uniform from all sides. So that could be, say, something like a leaf. So I'm going to make a leaf that is pointing at 45 degrees to the center. Now here we have a definite shape. We have a definite direction. And what this does is, it can mirror. So if I were to repeat the same thing, and this is where next week we are going to need our tracing paper. So I'm just going to show you this one where the repeat is shown. So if I try a regular repeat, I will just go and make these next to my leaf and repeat the pattern. And I could do the same throughout. I could just go above this and continue. But now, instead of keeping it exactly this way, what if the next row, I mirror it vertically? So I am repeating the same element, but I'm changing its direction or reflection. And I'm also going to add a half drop. So in the space between these two, or just a little off half, I'm going to change the direction of the leaf. Now we can't do this to the circle because no matter how we reflect it, the circle is always going to look like a circle. With a line, you can change it, which we did. So the moment we change the direction from horizontal, it became vertical. But if you were to mirror it, it would still remain the same. And then again, repeat this. So this is just a mirror repeat. Now, how this comes in handy is, say for example, you want to do block printing, you have just a piece of, even sometimes like a rubber, a regular eraser. You can carve out the design around this and create a block. And you will create one block that is pointing towards this side and another block that's pointing towards this side. So you will have two different blocks, and you will print one first, which will be a regular pattern. Yeah, if you can see these, where there are three, they're all regular, just like these dots. And where there are 4 lines, these are mirrors, and they have been placed at a half drop. Now, the fun part is that you can grow this design even from here by adding your own elements. And if we are painting by hand, say this is going to be a hand-painted card, you can do all sorts of things beach में. So let's say we add a line in pen to the center of these leaves. And bring this line all the way down to the leaf at the bottom. Connect all these. Now, the beauty of a hand-painted pattern is that it's not going to look machine-made. So some places your spaces might be irregular. And some places you can control the design, meaning that logically there should have been a line coming from the top. But since you're making this design by hand, you don't really need to make that line. And it looks like a really well-finished vine design. Now, if we want to continue in the same vein, you can create more elements like, let's go back to the red again. And next to every alternate leaf, we can create a 3-dot flower maybe. So not this one, this one. And try to keep it identical if you can. Not over here, then maybe over here. So you can work out the logic for yourself, where you want it. Because depending upon the intensity of the color and what it brings to the pattern, you may want to repeat it only a few times. So this is the designer's discretion. And from here, you can add another line. Now, if we were to add this all over the place, the design looks so bulky and so busy that your eye does not travel nicely through the pattern. With this now, if there's a flow, there's also a certain maturity with which you can enjoy both colors. So in many occasions, you will find that there is a hierarchy to how colors are used. And the way I see it, it is like how you would have a meal. You would have a certain amount of roti, sabzi, dal, but you won't have as much achar as you would have your sabzi or dal. So this becomes like the achar. You need it, but you don't need it in that quantity. So the moment the number of elements increase, there's a certain hierarchy. Oh God, is the spelling right? Hierarchy. No. So hierarchy in all sorts of things. So you have size, sometimes shape, color, quantity. Now in sizes, you will have, say, a large, medium, and small. In color, you can have bright to muted. And from quantity, you can have a few. So I'm just going to write minimum, maximum, and in between. Now, shape cannot be defined. So I'm just going to leave it as that, but you might have something like a very dominating shape to a very simple shape. So let me just put that for now, but this is an extremely subjective opinion.
Aditi, can you say that you can have a primary shape and a secondary shape?
How would you define a primary and a secondary?
Like, for example, in the pattern that you have done, the primary shape would be the leaf because there is more of it, and the secondary would be the flower. So, I don't know, that depends on your, I mean, what is, for example, if you're designing something where you
Yeah.
want to focus on animals, for example, and you're drawing elephants and then you fill in a few maybe bananas or leaves or whatever, but your primary focus is the elephant. So, that
I
would be your,
suppose, yeah, I suppose that might work.
I
It
don't know,
does.
it's just a thought.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense. Why not? So often, when we design this, like you said, it's if we were to use these terms, primary, secondary, and then also tertiary. The primary shapes are usually large, often bright, but fewer in quantity. And the smaller shapes are usually a lot in quantity, but they're often muted or recessive. And there could be multiple. So there could be multiple things that are happening in between. So if we were to make just a pattern, now this is not a repeat. If we were to make a simple pattern, which is pretty amorphous, you could start off with maybe not even the center because we are not going to repeat it. You could start off with maybe some kind of floral pattern. So let's define our elements. We're going to have a flower over here, then we're going to have leaves, and then we're going to have buds. And the buds could either be, you could either have birds or you can have bugs or butterflies or beetles, all sorts of things. So if we were to start with a simple graphic flower in a bright red color. So I'm not making it exactly in the center. I'm making it, actually, let's make it in the center. Keep it simple for now. So keeping the repeat very simple. I'm going to make these petals at 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 6 o'clock to the best of my ability. And then a second row of petals underneath. So large, bright, predictable. And in this, maybe I can add some textures so that this flower looks like it's a very important part. Now, here one strategy I want to tell you is, since my petals are not uniform, when I make these lines, that part will get hidden. You won't see that they are not really uniform because the stripes will camouflage the misshapen petals. Now, regarding shape, there's also a correlation you need to make with the flower. You can't always have, you can't have too many disparate shapes. Like if you're making flowers which have round petals, they will interact in one way or another with the shape of the leaf. So if you make leaves which have spiky edges, now the thing is that nothing is wrong. If you like round edges, that creates one look. If you have spiky edges, that creates another look. So all you need to do is just be responsive to the effect of your choices. So if we were to use maybe leaves like these, they don't have to be as large as a flower because that is the more dominating shape. It is the largest size. Primary motif, it is a bright color. So now we are putting in the medium element, which is the leaves. So I'm going back to my cerulean blue. And because this design is not a repeat pattern like that, we don't necessarily have to create one large motif out of this. So you don't need to make leaves in all four directions or anything. But knowing that this is the focus of your design, you need to make leaves that will draw attention to the flower than themselves. So what I mean is, visualize the center of the flower. That is the focus. And almost like insects that are pollinating, you have to create the leaf structure going outward from the center and fill that up. So the difference between this is, I think I should just demonstrate it. So it happens in the beginning that when you are unsure of your lines, if this is the flower you've made, you intend to show a leaf coming from below the flower, but you'll end up making something like this. So it doesn't look like it's coming from anywhere. And it just looks like it's gone and perched itself on a petal. And it makes the design look, like I said, it's not wrong. It makes the design look more amateurish. And that's perfectly fine if that is your intention. But what you should do, even if your leaf is imperfect, try and do something like that. Work out the logic that if this is where the stem comes out, how large would the leaf be? And maybe part of it gets hidden behind the flower. So see the difference between this and this. So if I want to make a smaller leaf, I could always still bring a stem out and make leaves like that. So this logic works better than this very often. The other thing also is to make leaf-like structures going straight up or down. Something similar to this, but I mean, this really almost looks like this flower is carrying a vegetable bag or something like that, shopping bag. So if we need to avoid these shapes for just for the first design logic. Once it's like a Picasso painting. Once you're confident with your lines, then you can draw all sorts of things. You can make your flower go shopping with that bhaji basket. All that is fine. So now in this case, I'm going to try to keep the leaf a little recessive, a little delicate, but it need not be only the size that keeps it delicate. Sometimes even the color is recessive. So in this case now, let's make a leaf pattern where I'm pulling the leaf out from the center. And because the design sense over here is about just lines, I'm not going to fill up that leaf. I'm going to keep the lines. And add them along the edge like that. Since we are not repeating them as a pattern, I can draw 2 leaves over here, one from here, it's slightly big, and then one from here, which could be slightly small or hidden further. Now, the design is pulling our eye a little to the right, so we can counter it by making a longer stem on this side, but it does not have to be diagonally opposite. A little curve, a little change in the direction is fine. And also, if when you are designing it, don't be restricted by your box. So even if you are working on a card, for example, if your design requires you to go out, do it. And then you can cut it off. So this half of the leaf not being there actually indicates that this could be a continuous pattern. So essentially what I've done is distributed the space around the flower, the negative space. And now obviously this looks like it's a blank that needs some attention. I could make a leaf over here like so. So this is the kind of surface pattern that I enjoy doing, which is not necessarily geared for printing, but we will do this next week. This is great fun to do on even pages this size, which then you can fold up into envelopes, boxes like we have done in the past. So in this, if this were a print, like a repeat, I would feel the need to add maybe a leaf coming from the outside towards the inside. We can do that as the next pattern. But now here, there are a few blank spaces and we can add a third element, which can be a very small part of this. And in this case, now you need to look at what colors to choose so that the color is not too distracting. It needs to be more delicate than our dominating color. Needs to be a tertiary element, should not compete with primary element in color, in size, in quantity, and the amount of space it uses. So we can take a slightly lighter cousin of the red. We can use an orange, and we can create just multiple dots in all the blank spaces to fill them up. Now, whenever you're doing this, remember that a dot is, or is, don't do a tuck, 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 tuck kind of dot. Don't just dab your brush like that, because it you can't guarantee that it'll create a nice shape. And whatever shape you make, if it's a teardrop shape that your brush lands up making, then it's a teardrop statement you're making on your print. So if you want a circle, make a circle. Take the time to go through the motions, make your brush go round and round, and fill this up. Now here you can change the size of the dot as well. You can change the color also. Now added to this, suppose I feel I want to add some more blue dots also. That might also be a good idea. So where will I add it? In the spaces, but not exactly in the same line as the orange dot. So I won't put it in a single line here. I'll put it a little off and not exactly in the center. So again, offset. This is the center. If I put it straight over here, the straight line will draw too much attention. So you can put it like this. There's something about keeping things unpredictable. Now we can tie up a few of these elements to the flower as well. So you could do just a nice crescent shape design in the center of this flower. Don't fill it up completely. That might look, again, very boring. Okay, now do you want to try making your own design in the next box? You can take 10 minutes and try to make your own design. And if you want to, use a rough sheet to create another kind of, use the same logic, flower, leaf, buds, or bugs, or just different elements.
Ma'am, just give me one moment. I'll be right back.
Sure, no problem. How's it going?
Mine is going well.
Okay, good. Oh, wow. Very nice. 1 second, let me just see it again. Shivani, show it again one more time. Nice. Very nice. Now in this design, what's happened is my primary color or the primary motif is now competing with the medium-sized secondary motif. And also that color is not sufficient. It's not bold enough and it's not standing out. So I am just adding another element, which is the small element in this case, because my first and second element are both pretty much the same size. But like I said, there isn't a right or wrong necessarily. So you can really do anything as long as the design looks appealing to you. Anything should be fine. So when do these rules come in handy? When you want to control the outcome of the design. When you are experimenting, I usually just call this painting time pass. You take a brush, you take some paints, and you just do all sorts of shapes and see what comes of it. But then from these, if you say, okay, now I want to create a pattern. And you say, okay, I have so many things happening over here. These are all theoretically elements. So I can take these dots and these leaves and this flower, and then I can overlay many of these things. And I can also create a very interesting muted background on top of which I can make a pattern that is more robust. So suppose we make a light blue backdrop, just a wash. So this will now change the body of the pattern. Remember, for washes, hold the book at an angle so that the paint can be pulled down by gravity and you're not spending too much time spreading it out. Now this has immediately added some identity to your design.
Aditi, can I show mine?
Yes. Oh, how pretty. Very nice. Beautiful. So while this is drying, I'm thinking about how I can make a nice backdrop on this. I can easily make self on self blue colored flowers or polka dots. So that becomes one layer. It has to just dry. So while this is drying, let's try thinking of a pattern or maybe unusual stuff. So we can often find patterns of um, flowers and leaves. But how about something that is unexpected? What would you say would be an unexpected element for a pattern? Or maybe something that you haven't seen. Can you think of something unusual?
Zigzag or triangle.
Zigzag and triangle is fairly common. Think of an object, an element.
Something like a fig, which is an unusual fruit.
A
Common.
fig.
Yeah.
Okay. A fig
A
is
snake.
Because you have to make sure it doesn't look like a onion.
that you can't make sure. that the appreciation of aesthetic is in the eye of the beholder.
Or also something like a stylized seahorse, because they have such a nice curl. I mean, that the whole shape of the seahorse is so nice.
What
Yeah.
about like snakes?
Curtain folds.
I'm actually thinking of stuff that is not necessarily pretty.
What about a spoon and fork? Like a spoon.
Correct, yeah. So something just ubiquitous, it's just around you, but you think, iska kya pattern banana hai? So you could think of something like that also. Fork and spoon is fine. You could kitchen equipment, sometimes all sorts of like mixer, grinder,
Teapot,
the pestle,
milk jug.
milk jug. Still, a milk jug is one of the prettier elements. But yeah, even all of those things. So open your eyes to all sorts of different kinds of elements around you. So let me just see if I have this one design I made for a spice company. But if you take spices like star anise, cloves, cinnamon is not really, doesn't do much, but you can use that.
That bindi.
Sorry?
The bindi cut if you cut it.
Bhindi, na? No, even without cutting it. Because cut, it looks very pretty. So just take away all the pretty stuff and see what
Okay.
regular, non-pretty, I wouldn't say ugly. I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere is making prints with poop emojis. Don't go to that extent. Just want something that is plain. It does not have to be
How about the
ugly.
scoop?
Gross.
Like a watch and spectacles.
Exactly. Yeah, we could do that.
That quirky print nowadays, like Masaba uses. in her design.
Yeah.
Chappals. So much. You see so many chappals
Chappal.
and shoes.
What about like band-aids? Like a band-aid print.
A band-aid print. Yeah, why not?
We
So,
get band-aids with such pretty prints now.
so they've
Especially
changed
for
that.
kids.
They made the band-aid pretty and then put
Yeah.
band-aids on clothes. Yeah, that's possible. So suppose you take just forks and spoons, for example. Just make something like that and just repeat it. So now I've stylized the fork. And you can literally just change all directions and keep spreading them out. Or you can keep it regular also. Then to this, what else can we add? Spoons. Now that this has a certain distribution, you can target the space in between and change the angle. So the immediate next object should not have a similar angle. You can't have a horizontal, you can't have this angle, you can't have vertical, and you can't have an angle like that. So what can we do? We can point it slightly towards the top and bring it's still in the same, but it's not pointing in the same direction. So this works, but if they were in the same direction, immediately that would become a little disturbing. So not vertical, not angular, sideways is pretty far away. So we could do that over here. Maybe point it downward. So even the slight 5-degree, 10-degree angle can make it look slightly different. Now here there is a repeat. So we could probably add a fork that's going in the opposite direction. And just to break this a little bit, you could have some part of one element sticking out from here. Then you could put, what could you put with forks and spoons over here? You could put maybe
Butter knife?
you could
A
put
glass,
yeah, I guess so.
a wine glass.
A wine so wine glasses are particularly difficult to draw for most people. We get our glasses
No,
terribly.
supposing you draw a simple triangular one like a martini glass.
You could try that, yeah. Or you
Can
could
we draw spaghetti?
spaghetti is a very complicated element again because you will make swirls, but unless that spaghetti is together, it will just look like one, like a single spaghetti might not work. But really, honestly, you should give it a shot and see if it works or not.
What about a prawn?
A prawn. Prawns are quite pretty, huh?
Sounds are pretty.
What can we do, Aditi? You have spoiled us.
Quite tasty also.
Okay. So, so I'm drawing just these simple glasses. But yeah, try drawing a prawn. You can try drawing maybe even serviettes, napkins in a ring or something like that. And start making this even more detailed. Okay, now coming back to my original. This one, I'm just now quickly going to build with some of the elements from here. And then keep going back and forth. So we can change the pattern a little bit and maybe make larger leaves just so that I don't have to paint too much. But look at how light I'm making this, because I don't want this to stand out too much.
What
Now,
happened?
here again, this falls under the color choice option. And in this case, the option is the reduced intensity. Whatever I did over there, I can do on this by adding a line and connecting these leaves to each other. This one will come down, so there should be a leaf here. And part of a leaf here. Now, instead of the 3 dots, I could go to these polka dots and create a repeat over here. So maybe I can, and I'm changing the color to using a yellow ochre now, but a very, very light yellow ochre. So I'm making that circle here and here, and then offset it and make it here and here. So this is our regular pattern, this very soft backdrop. And now either we can leave it like that because it's a nice subtle print in itself, or you can enhance it by using a darker color, and making more lines, making more dots, making flowers, or you can actually use this as a backdrop and make a complicated design like that on top of this as well. And it can look very busy, but it could also look really, really funky. So for this week, whenever you're practicing this, what I would like you to do is think about the elements that you can make, just whatever you can make, and try to keep it fun and exciting. So do a few flowers, get them out of your system, because it happens with me. If I don't do flowers, I can't think of anything else. Once I've done the flowers, I've done this petal, that petal, whatever, then I think of, okay, where else can I use this? So other circular things that you could find could be something like motors or engines or nuts and bolts or things like that. Very mechanical, which I would never draw because I'm horrible at it and I've never needed to draw it. So you could take that. Then from there, you could probably go to hardware tools. You could use spanners and saws or things like that. And from that, you would notice that they too have certain patterns, a predictable design, like the teeth of a gear. They're very nice. Bicycle parts are very beautiful. So just if you can dismantle those and then put them as a print, suddenly you've created something unique and original. So that's how you move from what you know to something that you don't know. And then in that case, all these elements come into play, all these factors. So say, for example, we take gears and ball bearings. Those become your print. The gear does not have to be a boring gray color. You can make it red or green or something exciting. The gear, its teeth can probably be the bedrock on which you can then string out your flowers and leaves if you want to. So it can, don't limit yourself to trying to keep the content too uniform or to what's the word for that? It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be connected to only its sphere. The topic, your topics can change within the same design. So a leaf could on one part what looks like a leaf, on another part could look like the wing of a bird, on another part it could look like a part of a car. It's perfectly fine. So think about how shapes merge and how they emerge from other things, and especially also from negative spaces. That way, then when you make the design, you will have a lot more options. Now, the whole point of this exercise eventually helps in expanding your imagination. There is there's no topic that you cannot choose to make a print design. But say if you've never explored machinery, you would never think about where you could use it. So that means that one entire section of engineering is out of your exploration. And then when you open a machine, you realize that everything, like even a watch and a traditional watch, when you open it up, that whole mechanism is beautiful. Imagine if you could just open that up and make an entire print out of the watch mechanism. It would look fantastic. So this topic allows us to really spread and do all sorts of other explorations part by part, because all you need is to be able to draw one part or one element of a topic that you would never have touched. All right? Okay.
Ma'am, can I show mine?
Yes, yes. Now I can see everyone.
It's this.
Very cute. Very cute. But Rida, I think you can explore some more. Think about something
Yeah.
different now, different kind of flower, something bolder. Very nice.
Yeah.
Subtle. Shivani, that dotted thing is looking very nice. I think all the prints are looking super fun. So now with the polka dot itself, you can, after you've made the polka dot, see if every alternate polka dot you want to make into a flower or into a rosette or something like that. Oh, Alka's print is looking pretty much like that. I'm going to unspotlight myself. Okay, let me just pin this. Yes, she's made ladybugs and leaves. Beautiful.
I have a similar color scheme.
Ah, very nice. Watermelons. But see how familiar these topics are. We've seen watermelons, we've seen bugs. Now think of stuff that you might not have thought before. So nice. Ritu's is also looking beautiful.
So I started this little, A5.
Ah,
Which, not started. I started it for something else, but eventually I started doing surface pattern designs on this. Simply because I don't want a big sketchbook, right? For this, I need something really small. So I started doing these, and now I don't use this for anything else, but I do things like this. Fill a page with any one pattern, whatever it is. Some of them just don't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Like for example, this, what a mess.
No, I think it's very pretty.
But it looks
Very
nice,
nice.
huh, Susan? It's looking nice.
So I've been doing this for a while, but I just can't understand where to take it from here. Like this is the one that I did right now. Don't know how to take it forward from here. Like what do you do then?
Print wrapping papers.
So then I will need to expand on this, right? I need to be able to put this next to another
Yeah.
that way. So next time once you do that, I'll be able to.
Yes, I'll show you how that can be done.
You can also do a quilted kind of thing, where you're mixing up 2-3 patterns on one sheet. Like how you have a patchwork quilt.
Yeah.
You
Kind
could
of a
do,
patchwork.
I like that idea. Wow.
For next class, do bring some tracing paper, because we'll definitely do repeats. And I'll show you how to take that one design and repeat it so that it starts becoming expanded. But when we do it mechanically, then you can take it into a digital format. And digitally now, so they can just fatafat repeat it. In no time it expands. But to be able to design it first, it helps to know how the mechanical part is done.
So a lot of digital printing now, I mean, repeat patterns, they just take the motif and place it everywhere. And, it's easier when you just take a motif and place it. Because then you can get everything uniform, you can get it over the bleed line, whatever you want to do, Whereas when you convert something that you've done painted by hand and then take it into digital, alignment becomes another story in itself.
It's yeah, again, it's how you illustrate it. So we'll do it next time. I'll show you
Hmm.
how the design tiling works.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll see you all next week then. Bye.
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 Bye.